Hey everyone. Quick announcement today. Kason and I are actually a few weeks ahead on the podcast now, so the time has come to pick the next title that we will be covering on the podcast after Xenogears. This is something that we put to vote on our Patreon page for the $5 patrons and above. So if you would like to be involved in choosing the next title, go and check our Patreon page. But I just wanted to let everyone know, because in the last vote, right, we had Xenogears up against Final Fantasy X, and Final Fantasy X was a game that a lot of people hoped that we had covered, even though Xenogears was picked. And so I know a lot of people are probably anxiously awaiting to do another Final Fantasy game after this. But after Xenogears, I am mentally exhausted. Let's just put it that way. It's been a lot of work to cover this game in the amount of depth and for the length of time that we have. And so I need a break from JRPGs. So we're going to cover something else in between Xenogears and the next Final Fantasy that we'll vote on. I just need a break from JRPGs for a second. I've got to talk about something else to stay sane. Please bear with me on that. I'm begging you. I know you guys love JRPGs. I also love them. I can't talk about them exclusively forever. I've got to talk about something else. And it will probably be short. It will probably be a short game. Like, the games that I'm putting into the vote are Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, which can be beaten in less than 10 hours. I think we'll also put Mass Effect back in there. And again, that one's maybe 16 to 20 hours to beat. So these games are not nearly as long as these massive JRPGs we typically play. So, at the most, we're looking at 4 to 6 episodes or something like that on a weekly release schedule. So a month and a half, maybe 2 months at the most, depending on what it is. So it won't be nearly as lengthy a process as Xenogears has been, or Nier, or Final Fantasy VIII. And then after this next game, we will go back to a vote for Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy Tactics, and Final Fantasy VI. We'll let you pick between those three, and we'll cover an FF game. And then we'll move on from there. So, just wanted to make that announcement, make you aware, the patrons and also people who aren't, that the vote is happening now for the next game, even though there's still a few more episodes here left in Xenogears, and that's just because we're a few weeks ahead now on the show. So just thought I'd let everybody know that. Please enjoy this episode. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate you. And we'll announce that winner soon. Hello, welcome back to the State of the Arc podcast. My name is Mike.
My name's Kason.
We're carrying on from where Fei goes into the belly of the beast and is sealed up by the Gazel Ministry in Solaris, and it seems like Citan has betrayed us, and we're going to go to the end of Disc 1. A lot of stuff to talk about here. We just got done with the scene with the Gazel Ministry revealing their plot to revive God, to take the bodies of Bart and Billy and the others as their animus and get their consciousness out of the computer and back into a body again.
Even though they talk down on Cain, they're like, he has a body, so he's not. We're the real wise ones. And It's like, dudes, you're trying to get into a body. Like, I don't know, it's funny.
So it cuts away from that scene, and we come to a scene with Krelian, who has Elly separated from the others. She's like lying on this little bed that almost looks like an MRI machine or something like that. It's got kind of that rounded structure to it. He comes down and he starts talking to her and using a lot of terminology from molecular biology and genetics and things like that that might be hard to decipher what he's talking about if you're not at least a little bit familiar with that stuff. So luckily for you, I've done some studying this week to learn what he's talking about. And I'll try to break it down for you as best I can, because for the layman who does not know what these terms mean, it can be very confusing. So, the first thing that he says is that the incident that happened with Elly 3 years ago, where she freaked out and shot all those dudes and killed everyone when she took, or they were trying to forcibly make her take drive. Right? Where she freaked out and killed all those guys. He says that that was not the result of the common side effects of the drug.
He was like, that didn't happen because you were given drive and it made you go crazy.
Yeah, that because something else.
It happened because you had an awakening of your other inner self.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, what? Another inner self? Now, she's acting confused about this, but based on some of the other dialogue from before, she seems to be aware that this is happening and maybe is trying to not think about it.
It's possible she doesn't know the extent, right? She knows something's going on in her brain, but she doesn't know that it's a whole another complete self.
Not totally sure of what it all means.
Yeah.
And so he basically confirms right there's another inner self inside of you that awakened during that event where you killed all those people.
That's when she was under extreme duress.
Yes. And then he goes on talking about, and we mentioned this a little bit in the last episode, about his struggles to create nanomachines as complex as the ones that are found in Emeralda.
Yes.
That are small enough and complex enough to do the things that he needs to do to fulfill his plan. And that he couldn't figure this out until they went and captured Emeralda, and what he got from her, he basically figured out this problem he's been stuck on forever.
For 500 years.
So I copied down what he says here. He says, although the nanomachines up until now could recombine DNA, they couldn't uncover any information in the intron, which are located in the replacements of the double helix.
Right.
Now I'm going to finish this quote because this sounds like nonsense, but it's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
He says, however, the newer nanomachines easily discovered this data that originally should not have existed, and we are about to see the results of that. Okay, so our genes, right? You have the cells of your body, and then the
nucleus.
The nucleus. In the nucleus, this is where your DNA is at.
Yep.
The DNA is inside of genes that are inside the nucleus of each cell in your body that makes up you. And most people know that DNA is like kind of the blueprint or the building block of who you are, right? It contains the instructions.
If you ever watched Jurassic Park.
Yes. If you watch Jurassic Park, you know at least that much.
Yes.
Now, essentially what it has is the data necessary for protein synthesis. However, so when you pull out like a strand of DNA, right? Like people know what the double helix looks like.
Yeah.
What happens is you have these molecules that come in and they attach to that strand of DNA, and they start to copy the data that's on it.
Yeah.
So that it can then be used for protein synthesis inside of the nucleus of the cell. However, along that strand, right, there are blocks of it, I'll call it that, or sections that are called exons, and sections of that DNA strand called introns. The exons are the portions that have necessary code or data for protein synthesis. The introns are these strands that don't have anything that we are aware of that is useful for anything.
Hello, this is me, post-production, making a quick addendum to this point that I made about introns being junk DNA. Some of the research I was looking at during, the preparation for this podcast was outdated. And so while for a long time introns were looked at as junk DNA that were simply spliced out, during this process of copying the data into RNA, messenger RNA, the mRNA that is then carried on, so that protein synthesis can occur in the cell. That was mostly just not, scientists not understanding like what role introns might play because it was difficult to determine. So in the time since then, right, since the research I was looking at was published, it seems that scientists have been able to identify cases where introns are playing some kind of role in maintaining successful transcription and processing of RNA. They also have been observed to have a role in controlling the speed of gene expression. So, I'm not a molecular biologist. I'm not going to bother going into more detail on that. I'm more just correcting myself here in the claim that I was making that we don't know what introns do. There's still a lot of research to be done in this area. We're not like super certain about it, in terms of how many functions or what that code in the introns might be doing. But it's no longer in like the current science considered junk DNA like it used to be, where we have no clue what it does at all. We're beginning to discover some pretty interesting functions that introns, the data inside of introns can actually serve. So just wanted to make that correction. Basically just ignore anything that I say about introns, us not understanding the purpose of them, moving forward from this point.
We're probably wrong, but yeah.
We don't understand
Right.
what they're for, because what happens is that these molecules come and they copy all of it, the exon and the intron information. But then it has to itself splice out the introns so that it's connecting, here's a strand of exon information, here's some intron, and then here's some exon. It's like, we don't need this part, we just need these parts. So it'll work to like sort of like this like little coil happens where the intron is severed and the exon parts are tied together. And then what happens is that
that's freaking amazing.
The intron.
This is a natural process.
Yes, a natural
That's
process.
incredible.
It's happening in you
That is
freaking all the time.
Incredible.
The intron then is recycled. The matter is dissolved and recycled in the cell.
So the nucleic acid.
We have absolutely no freaking idea what it is for, because it doesn't seem to have any use at all. And the exon is then carried by the messenger RNA to go make proteins. So
sick.
What he is talking about here, and this is actually, I think what Sorya Saga and Tetsuya Takahashi are trying to do here is to create a relatively accurate biological explanation for this science fiction concept that memories or important data can be contained in the introns.
Sure. Oh, okay. I missed that. I did not get that. Okay, interesting.
So we re-examine this line.
I like that.
He says, although the nanomachines that he was using before, up until now, could recombine DNA, they couldn't uncover any information in the intron, which are located in the replacements of the double helix. So he's like, my nanomachines couldn't recover any useful data from introns. These nanomachines from Emeralda were able to uncover data from introns, and I'm about to find out what the results are right now.
Wow. That's cooler.
It's way cooler.
It's cooler than it was when I played the game.
It's actually a pretty freaking sweet idea. The idea that Takahashi here is trying to use this concept we don't really understand, these introns in our body, what are they for?
It's like a hypothesis.
The collective unconscious is stored in the introns of our DNA.
Right.
That's what he's getting at.
And it's passed down and it's forever.
Right. Or memories from past lives or whatever. Right? Is inside of that intron information that, as far as we understand, it's useless. The body isn't using it.
Right.
But there's maybe some kind of other spiritual connection or something like that there, right? Something
That's
connected to the soul.
I took it as being more like being overly technical. Like, my initial thinking is like, hey, let it suffice that we're in a magical world and you don't have to explain everything.
Yeah.
That explanation's fascinating, though.
That
is fascinating.
Freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So then he pulls up on the screen what they found. What he found is what he calls the Uroborus ring. It's this big ring that comes up on the screen.
Well, I have a mistake there.
Go for it.
So it should not be Uroborus with an L. It should be Uroborus. It should be spelled Ouroboros. So Uroborus. It is, according to Eric Neumann, who we mentioned last episode, the fundamental symbol of humanity, of all mankind. The Uroborus is the snake eating its own tail.
Yes, right.
And that is found in ancient Maya, ancient Inca, ancient Egypt, ancient India,
sort
ancient
of a symbol
China.
of infinity, right?
Yes, it's where the infinity symbol comes from. It's the snake consistently chasing its own tail.
Yeah.
And the idea was the old cartographers and people would, if you've ever seen an old map, you'll see snake monsters around the borders of the known world, right? And it's usually the water. So out in the ocean, over here there'd be monsters kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
You're off the edge of the map. That's the idea. So it was the snake, and specifically they began to draw the Uroborus, signifying that we're within the Uroborus. Everything within here is the known. What is without is the unknown chaos, right? It's kind of an explanation of the conscious versus the unconscious, but in cartography, right?
Sure.
Like the idea being that this stuff is just everywhere. But the Uroborus symbolizes infinity. It also symbolizes death and rebirth, because it's not just the snake consuming its own tail. It is also, have you ever seen a video of a snake shedding its skin before?
Yes.
So it does it through the mouth. And it's like
crazy.
The mouth opens, and if you don't know what you're looking at, you would think that it's a new snake emerging from the old snake's mouth, right? So snakes had that, this regeneration kind of theme was applied to them by all the humans ever, saying snakes are a symbol of resurrection, of rebirth, of all this kind of stuff, right?
Gotcha.
You know, would it be Christ? In the New Testament, they would say it's Christ. In the Old Testament, they would, just Jehovah, I guess, is the symbol of the brazen serpent, right? Which is being a serpent just in general is an interesting concept, given that the serpent might represent maybe Satan. But
in this case,
it doesn't always.
It's a symbol of rebirth.
It's a symbol of rebirth, and that would just be another connection towards. But the Uroborus has that kind of symbol, and it is like considered the fundamental symbol of all of humankind. It's also, this is something that I thought of as I was listening to Eric's book. It's not something he mentions, but it is fascinating that a human embryo is basically that shape. In fact, the embryo of anything, when it's the size of a button, when it's this big, it's in that fetal position, and its head and its tail are curled and touching, right? And so it's this like image of the forever whatever. Anyways, so the Uroborus is considered the embryotic stage of humankind, going all the way through. So that's important because of what he says it means later. Anyways.
So isn't it interesting that Elly carries in her DNA, within the introns of her DNA, the universal symbol of humanity?
Yes, it is very interesting.
What does that signify?
Some, what's the word? Godliness might be the word.
Yeah, or I'm trying to remember what terms they've used to describe Elly at this point. I don't want to say this yet if they haven't said it directly to her yet, but okay, I'll just avoid it just in case.
Some high potential. High potential.
The Uroborus is encoded into Elly's DNA as the antitype. He then goes on to make a connection.
Oh, one more thing. The Uroborus is also, it's the snake. It is the snake, the earliest Uroborus that we've ever seen is from like 5,000 years ago in Egypt, and it is MHN. It is Mahan, which in this game they say Mahanan. Right. It is Mahan, the snake god of Egypt, that is making that first earliest Uroborus that we've discovered. Right? Yeah. It's Mahan. Just a little.
I just remembered
something out there that might be connected.
So, he makes a connection between Miang and Lacan and their actions 500 years ago. He kind of mentions it in passing, like, this is kind of what was going on with Miang and Lacan 500 years ago, right? He then determines that, so he does use it right here. Perfect. He refers to her as the mother.
Yes.
Elly as the mother. And Elly has the Uroborus. The
fundamental symbol of humanity. Yes, according to Eric Neumann.
She is the mother.
Yeah.
Right? Just think back to references to the mother that have been made in the game.
Cool. Can do. I'm doing it right
now. She's the antitype. She carries this ultimate, fundamental symbol of humanity in her DNA and the introns. Krelian goes on to say, this is what your genetic exon looked like before replacement. Now, if you remember back to the intro scene of the game, where they're on the Eldridge and all those people are shouting technobabble at each other, one of the operators says something about the exon replacement.
Oh, really?
Let's see if I can recall exactly what the line was.
Let me give to you a thought that might be very symbolic here. The embryo of God that is shown at the very beginning of the game is not in an Uroborus the way that humans are. Yeah. The tail is going outward, signifying that it is not infinite. That would be what I would take from that symbologically. I missed that in episode 2.
Okay,
but it is not an Uroborus, so it could mean that this god has an end.
Omega-1 restarting. Alpha-1 genome restructuring. Confirming exon replacement. Base code 85 million. 100 million.
Now, by the way, the DNA writing and rewriting goes way faster than that.
Yeah.
That was like, boop, one little thing at a time. You know? And it's like, no, dude, they write the whole strand of like trillions of binary, well, not binary. There's 4, right? GTCA. Does it in like, a split second, and it's like, does it way faster than that. But yeah, look at the tail on the embryo here. It's not what you would expect for a normal embryo. A normal embryo, it is not uroboric.
Yeah. And she says, confirming exon replacement. So, anyways,
Good
same
stuff.
terminology here. He says, this is what your genetic exon looked like before replacement. This is the conceptualized form of the intron, which carries information that isn't supposed to exist. Observe, this is the Uroboros ring, which contains intron information which only exists in certain people. Uroboros, if we were to anatomize such a thing, wouldn't you be interested in the type of information it would offer to us? So,
yes, indeed.
I'd be very interested. He then goes on to say, you haven't changed since then, to Elly. He says, you have not changed since then, just like the other one, Lacan.
Now say that again.
You haven't changed since then, Krelian
Just like the other one.
says to Elly, just like the other one, Lacan.
Since when specifically? I remember reading this, but
The
he
time
says,
of
"You
Lacan
haven't
was
changed since
500
then."
years ago.
Sure, so you haven't changed for 500
We know that
years.
Krelian was there with Lacan 500 years ago.
Yeah, and that Elly has not changed.
And that Elly looks
in
like
500
Sophia.
years. Yes.
You haven't changed since then, just like the other one, Lacan.
Yeah. They even wear the same clothes.
That one's kind of weird. I'm going to talk about that later.
I don't mind it because the pixel art, it would have been hard to understand this is the same person without the same clothes.
Down in Zebulun, they showed Fei wearing a lab coat.
Oh,
it's
you're
not
right.
like they haven't showed him wearing
his
different
ponytail,
clothes before.
You're right.
But anyways, I'll talk about that later.
Fair enough.
That particular thing, that Lacan wears exactly the same clothing as Fei. Okay, so that's the end of that scene. Anyways, lots of really cool stuff there. And once you realize what exon and introns are and their actual function in the body, this is actually a pretty cool science fiction little way of trying to describe the purpose that introns might have, right? In like these special people who are carrying like a sort of like twisted concept of the collective unconscious. The fact that these memories from super ancient people or whatever are manifesting in people in the current day. Same ideas. Carl Jung basically created this little like ceremony where he like offered, he created like a totem and offered
his own little,
like little words and things to it. It was almost like a religious ceremony that was so similar to what like these people on the other side of the world were doing in ancient times. They had no knowledge of at the time.
Yeah.
There were somebody in the comments of our last episode who, or I guess it would be 2 episodes ago now. Well, no, for them it's not. For us, what we just uploaded, this is episode 13 I'm talking about. This is episode 16 or 17 right now. Anyways, it was Greg Troyan. He was talking about how he had some ideas, he had written some ideas before playing Xenogears or something like that, that ended up being similar to what was in Xenogears, and he had never played it before, right? He had some story ideas or whatever that were like similar. And my comment underneath that was, collective unconscious!
Collective unconscious! That would be, so another word, well, there's also synchronicity, which is part of the collective unconscious.
Yeah.
Synchronicity is when people on the other side of the world do the same thing at the same time, and Jung says, well, how else do you explain that other than something's connecting everybody somewhere, right?
Yep.
The other one is actually a Hegelian word, which is probably where Jung got some of his ideas from, but it's zeitgeist, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if he ever actually said the word, but it's attributed to him, the idea of the zeitgeist, right?
Yeah.
People are interested in a thing at a time, and it's the zeitgeist of the world, right?
So your exons contain the data you need for protein synthesis for your body to function. But the introns, that's where you're getting your ideas from past lives. That's why people can have this. Anyways, that's the idea I think that they're kind of exploring here in Xenogears. Is that kind of information is stored in the introns, right?
Yeah.
Okay, So then we get...
Did we get a line at this point? I can't remember where this was of Krelian saying something along the lines of Miang and Lacan's actions. So this explains Miang and Lacan's actions.
Yes.
So it's from Krelian?
Mm-hmm. Krelian said that. I put that note up here. Yeah.
Now, this is fascinating because I took this note here before we discovered other things later on. But my note here read, Miang and Lacan's actions. What? Like, is Lacan still alive? Graph? ?
Oh, before you put that note
before later things happened.
Okay, yep.
That point was where I started questioning, because Miang and Lacan, the only person Miang we've seen planning with something that anybody would be like, oh, so that's what they were planning. It would have to be Graph.
Graph, right.
Yeah, but he says Lacan. And so I also started thinking, because I was like, no, this isn't in my notes. And I but whatever. Lacan, the last part of his name is Khan. And my guess, wait, did we put that in spoilers? I can't remember, because I don't even know. I might even be wrong. I didn't watch the videos. But Khan could be from Lacan, and Graph could still be Khan. Anyways, I'm just saying, I thought of that.
Okay, so don't worry about that.
Okay.
That's possibly the most confusing plot point of this whole game. I did not understand it it was like impossible. I could not figure out all of that you're thinking of. And it's going to be Jacques Lacan's stuff that will help explain it.
Of course.
Once we actually get to the bottom of that whole fetching mess rabbit hole thing, which will probably be like 5 episodes in and of itself, I'm exaggerating, but
yeah.
That thing, I'm just saying, is a very hard part of the plot to understand. It's very difficult. And that's why I was laughing so hard when we were talking about Queen Zephyr being like, and then like Wiseman's like, don't worry, I'm not him. And I was trying to like explain that, and I was like freaking like, this is so confusing because it's really hard to understand.
Well, so as soon as we learn who the they and him and all those, they start adding new exclamation points for new other things that we now don't understand.
Yep.
And there's a bunch of other
like quotations.
I can't think of what they are right now because they're new and I haven't seen them 100 times the way I saw the other ones. But they've just now reintroduced new big questions about stuff now that they keep putting things in quotes. It's crazy. Yeah,
it's hard to wrap your brain around, but you're on the right track. You know what you should know at this point. Okay. It's really cool that you picked it up before they actually revealed it.
About Lacan.
They say it outright. Lacan is Graph. Like, I think Fei says that down in the prison.
Yes, when he's in the jail thing, yeah.
So Graph is Lacan, but how and why Lacan looks like Fei and all his stuff and like who is Khan in relation to all this is so effing confusing that we're not touching that yet.
That's fun.
Okay, where were we?
So this is when we're out. We're back to the Gazelle, right?
Oh,
and
yeah,
this
we
is
go
when
back into the room
starts to tell us.
Where Citan frees Fei.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, he has a conversation with him
not
first.
Yet. First, he tells him stuff like, "You're dumb."
Yes.
I hate
you. He goes and talks
you're
to
stupid.
Fei.
Yeah.
He's being a dick to him.
He is.
Again,
and he'll say
with
stuff
a purpose,
like, "What? Isn't it so much easier to just be told what to do? Why are you being so childish, thinking that you can do other things you're not told to do?"
I took this whole quote down because I just thought it was a really poignant quote. Okay. It's really good. Not because I just like it. I just like reading it. I just think it's a good piece of writing. He says, it is much easier to be given a place to belong than to make one yourself. You do not even understand a simple concept like that. Childish ideals pale when placed before reality. And this kind of harkens back to what he said earlier after they were all disgusted after eating the Soylent System food. He was like, this is reality, let's go.
This is it, yes, exactly.
He's very, he's just being really harsh and cold right now.
Yeah.
This is reality, let's go. And then here is like, similar sentiment, right? Childish ideals pale when placed before reality. But actually, many are satisfied with that. Being given one's place frees one from any risks. Misfortunes may be blamed on others. Do you know why people cannot exist alone, but only under some bigger concept such as a group or country? People need a place to go to be themselves. The more stable it is, the more effective it is. The ministry gives them such a place. Under total surveillance, there is no need to bear the risk of maintaining one's own individuality. They simply live under the delusion of being an individual. What could be easier? Facts are facts, so let's just accept them. It will be easier for all of us. Resistance is futile. It only makes things painful. Now, this is a philosophical concept that is very relevant to human nature. You know, we live in what we consider to be a democratic society where we think we have freedom and autonomy and control of our own lives, yet people tend to really, when they get scared, when something seems like...
When something threatens their security.
When there's some threatening thing, there seems to be, people really gravitate towards figures. You fix this for us. There's this almost worshiper of certain figureheads. They turned to someone else. It's too hard for me to figure out what to do. I'm too scared. It's this, take control and fix it.
And then if things don't work, that person then becomes a scapegoat. And it's their fault. Right?
Yes.
That's a theory of René Girard, talk about the scapegoat theory, which Christ was essentially a scapegoat.
Yeah.
Because he's someone we can offload all of our problems onto.
Yeah.
He deals with it. We don't have to worry about it anymore, right?
Yeah.
And that is how humans are. And in large part, there is some collective unconscious stuff kind of going on there too, because when people get in a big group, they start to not... You cater to the least common denominator kind of thing. People start to move as a group, they act as a group. A subconscious element begins to kind of take over what people will and won't do, right?
Yeah.
There is no morality. That's how riots start, because everyone's just like, well, I'm just part of this group. We're all acting together. Despite not being connected, we're all doing this thing together. And when things happen, we all just kind of do it, and then we absolve ourselves of any responsibility. But Jung would say that is the collective unconscious going, which is in part why religions even exist, because you have a place where people can go together and be together and sing a song or something, and just the fact that they're all together doing the same thing. Like, have you ever been to like a musical concert, a big symphony or something, and as soon as that song is over and the crowd erupts in applause, it's powerful. You aren't even the one performing. You're just part of the group, mindlessly listening and clapping. Maybe not mindless, but you're just part of the group doing what everyone else is doing, but you feel this power, and there is immense power in tons of people all focusing on the same thing and agreeing with each other that what they just witnessed was good.
A 3 wins the series. It's Lillard. He got the shot off.
And it almost brings a tear to your eye. It's just like, my gosh, this is so powerful. And that is essentially a subconscious element.
Yeah, it's almost primordial.
Yeah, and there's something connecting everybody, in some way. And that he would say that's the collective unconscious. But it's that idea, and it's the...
We seem
people gravitate towards that.
We seem to want to... there's some part of us that wants to think of ourselves as an individual.
Yes,
as unique, as distinct.
But only when things are easy.
In control.
Yes.
But yes, as soon as there's pressure applied, there is this almost like primordial part of our unconscious that drives us towards congregating, towards and then towards appointing someone to you be the one to fix this. I'm too scared. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And
it's
almost like part of our
right now.
It happens all the time.
All over the world. You're right.
It always happens. It happens. Yes. It's every era, every time period. That's what it is to be human.
Yeah.
This is part of who we are.
But it's a subconscious level.
And there's almost like a conflict happening inside of us where we want to think of ourselves like this, but we are like this.
Yes.
And what is the best way for a society to be structured is an argument that's been happening for longer than any of us, even know.
Yep.
About how to deal with that particular conflict, right? And what is the best way to make humans happy and have a society run correctly.
Right.
Now, That being said,
it's for people to give up part of their autonomy. That's what has been determined.
Yeah.
For a long time, but how much of their autonomy to give up? That's
where's that line drawn or whatever?
But it depends on how hard things are. If things are hard, you'll give it all up.
Yep.
Just like
seems to be.
If things are easy, then it's like, no, I need to keep it.
So this does not mean that Citan actually espouses this particular.
It doesn't. But what he's saying is still technically true. Like saying it is easier to give a place to belong than to make your own place.
Yeah.
Just because it's easier doesn't mean it's what you do. So like he's giving you true statements technically, like, oh, it's easier to do this. You're so dumb, you didn't realize it's easier to do that. It's like, who says he didn't know what was easy? Like Fei isn't necessarily taking the easy route. Now he's got his scapegoats and he's got his things that he can offload his problems on, like when he decided, I'll just follow Bart and do whatever Bart wants.
Yes.
And that's him absolving responsibility and saying, okay, if something goes wrong, it's his fault.
Yep.
And so he doesn't have to worry about it. But like, and so to some extent, that's true of Citan as well. He gets to offload all of his problems onto Citan, and if something goes wrong, it's his fault. But technically, like he's not taking the easy road. Yeah. Like he is taking a hard road. But yeah, so what Citan's saying is technically true. It's just not. I don't know. It's like half truths. He's just using it to break Fei.
He's just trying to provoke Fei.
Exactly. And what he's saying is true. You can't find fault in it necessarily, but it doesn't mean that that's what Fei's doing. But Fei is very, very susceptible to that argument.
But yeah, he's just antagonizing him with this. Yeah. He then goes on after, moving past that.
And that's 1984 stuff, by the way. The whole give up your autonomy.
Totally.
You don't need to be an individual. That's straight up.
Yes.
Well.
So he goes on to continue antagonizing him with this kind of thing, which is what really breaks him. He tells him he couldn't protect his friends. And he couldn't protect Elly, who's like the closest person to him.
Yes.
He talks about how powerless he is. There's nothing he can do about any of it. He's just like, you are powerless. You can't do anything. Just accept it. This is reality. Like it's easier to just let someone else make a place for you to belong. All this stuff, and then the lights go out again.
Yes.
And he says, now we can take our time to talk. Id.
I loved that because as soon as he said that, I was like,
This is why he was doing this.
Because even through all this, I was like, Citan is still a good guy. I will maintain that Citan is still a good guy. And at that point, though, either way it went, I would not have faulted the storytellers. If Citan turned out to be a bad guy, I'd say bravo, well done. They did a good job. They did it well. If he turns out to still be a good guy through something, because I kept thinking through all this, I kept thinking of his wife.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Maybe their conversation was her saying, you know what you have to do. Be the bad guy. Citan, stop being so good.
Yeah.
Take this sword, kill people, be a bad guy now. I started thinking that. I was like, maybe that's what the woman told him.
This is what people really need. Yes, they really need a place to belong and security.
Cut Fei's head off.
Yes.
People need security. Like I started thinking, because they didn't, we don't know their conversation. We just know that she said, do what you do the right thing.
Yeah.
But what's right is all completely relative. And so if he turned out to be bad, I'd have said, well done. They just developed his character so well, it could have worked. And if he turns out not to be bad, like, well done. Like, it's well done either way. But it really had me at that point where it could have gone either way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it was just so good because at this point, it's right around there when he says he's talking to Id.
It's like, that's why he was being so
mean. On the second playthrough, for me, it's like, aha, that was it. On the first playthrough, it was like, I wasn't really sure. I wasn't putting all this together like I am now. But like, it was just so like, critical. It was like, that was it. Like, that was the reason for all of this out of character sort of behavior he's been doing. His attitude towards us, his allowing us to eat the freaking, the food, right? The Soylent, all that stuff. Is because he needed for Fei's sake, for Emperor Kain's sake, for the world's sake, he had to know if Id is in control of Fei or if Fei is in control of Id. Like, where is the hierarchy? Where is the base personality? Who is the real Fei here? And he had to do all of this to get at Id so we can have a conversation with him about that, so we could figure it out. And we don't actually get to see that conversation until much later, after they leave Shevat, or leave Solaris, and they're back in Shevat. So we'll get to that in a minute, but it's a really good conversation.
My next note here says lots of spelling mistakes.
Tons of spelling
That's my whole note.
There's so freaking
I didn't
many.
notice hardly any the whole game up until basically Solaris. And
There's
all of a
a
sudden, they're cropping up everywhere.
There's a lot. Then we get a scene with Ramsus, where he comes in after Krelian leaves the lab where Elly's being kept. Ramsus comes in.
Oh, like right after each other. Like Krelian leaves, Ramsus comes in like 1 second later.
Yeah, he comes in and he's trying to force Elly to tell him where Fei is. He's really losing it at this point. He's losing touch with his sanity now.
Yeah, he can't even say whole sentences. It's like ... in between. He's like, tell me where he is.
So
like he can't.
Yeah,
he's losing his grip.
He's like hurting her, and she's like, I don't know. And then she notices that he's taking some kind of drug, which she says is a mental stabilizer. So Ramsus is like taking a mental stabilizer to keep him like some grasp on his sanity, because he is losing it.
I missed that
right now. And so like he's gotta kill Fei, where is Fei? So then he leaves, and she kind of passes out again. And then we come back to Fei, but Fei is out of the contraption, and Bart and Billy are there. And Citan is there.
Everyone's there.
And he's like so pissed he's gonna like attack Citan.
Yeah, he runs at Citan.
And Billy and Bart, and especially Bart's like, no, it's your mistake. Like, he's the one who helped us. And he's not listening to Bart, but then Billy explains it.
Yes,
and
that
he's
was
like,
great.
oh, really? Is that right? And then Bart gets mad. He's like, oh, so if Billy says it, you believe him?
I love that.
Good character writing there. Good character work between the characters. But Citan finally comes out, and yes, I'm playing double agent, but I had to deceive you. One, because I brought you all here to remove your limiters. Now, this can be a little confusing, because Gaspar claimed to have removed limiters back in Shevat.
But they said specifically in Shevat, they said I removed some limiters.
So there seems to be two different ones. There's like a physical limiter,
and then
there's a psychological limiter.
And the psychological one's fascinating, because what the heck's up with that?
Yeah.
Well,
he explains.
He does. And it will enable him to be fearless and courageous.
Against the Ghazal in particular.
Yes.
So the psychological limiters, if you try to directly oppose the Ghazal ministry, it will make you hesitant and fearful and like, oh, I don't know if I should be doing this. And so they place that in everyone's minds.
Like right at birth.
Yeah, so that nobody will want to resist them. Because there's this limiter in their brain keeping them from doing so that makes them feel like, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. They lose their like resolve like in the moment where they actually have to face them, right?
You know what's good though? This is important because this points towards Carl Jung's general like idea. Well, probably more well elaborated by Joseph Campbell in The Hero's Journey, where it's like you got in Legend of Zelda, you got the Triforce of power, wisdom, courage.
Yeah.
Power, some people are born with power, some people are born without it, some people are strong, some people aren't. Wisdom, some people are smart, some people aren't smart, right? But courage, everyone can be courageous. And that's why courage is the one that's attached to the hero.
Yeah.
Because the hero is the one that goes out courageously into the darkness to slay the dragon. And it doesn't take as much power or wisdom, but it takes mostly courage in order to do that. And so I find it very fitting that the psychological limiter that has been taken off, that they now have, is the hero instinct. They now have what it takes to be the hero.
Yes.
Whereas they didn't before, and I like
That's actually a really good point.
It is good, because at first I was like, oh no, they're going to access their collective unconscious now. The psychological limiter's off, but it's not. It's courage specifically, which is the hero quality.
Now, one thing that Citan also points out is that Elly never had that limiter in her, ever.
Oh, really?
He says specifically that Elly
she didn't have any.
Never had a limiter implanted
That's
in her
right.
from the start.
Yeah.
Which he was very fascinated by. He was like, I think he says something like, something that was interesting. Sorry, what I should say is unusual. Is that Elly didn't, because his way of talking is very scientific.
Fascinating.
Yes, but he's like, wait, that will make it sound like I think this is a great thing.
Yeah, he's trying to be more personal with his speech.
So I liked that.
But also, they asked us about Fei. Said, did you remove Fei's limiters?
And he goes like,
oh, well, you see. Now, there's two reasons I could think of for that. One of them being that, Elly did not have limiters. For an inexplicable reason, she didn't even have them. Yeah. So when they say, Citan, did you remove phase limiters? And he's like, oh, well, technically, it could be, well, I didn't remove them. He didn't have them either.
Right.
It could be that.
Could be
or
that.
It could be, he removed them himself, or someone else removed them, or no, I didn't remove them, and I'm lying to you.
I'm afraid to remove them because of what I learned from Id.
Oh, interesting.
See, I don't know what the answer is either, though, because I don't remember. Because it could be any one of those things.
That's right, because Id's back there, but it's just the courage to face the Gazelle Ministry.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if...
But yeah, I think that interpretation, the first one.
Yeah.
But
he said yes.
Like Elly, he didn't have one either.
Yeah.
But he didn't really want to say that, or didn't know how to say it, or was starting to.
Well, because the question was, did you remove them from him? And so he would technically have had to say no, but he doesn't have them. It could still work that way, you know. But they didn't let him respond. He said, argle bargle, and then
like, okay,
they moved on to something else.
Move on.
Which is kind of interesting, given that he was so timid in his response.
Yeah, so, I mean, legitimately, I just don't remember, like, the answer.
And by the way, I'm still not 100% sold that Citan is a good guy. I'm like 90% sure. So it went from like 60-40, he was a good guy. Beginning of the game, it was like 99.
Yeah.
You know, 60-40 by the reveal, you know? And then 90.
Momentarily 100%.
90, yeah, for like a scene. And then things keep happening. I'm like, wait, we still don't know everything.
Yeah.
He's still got some weird deal with the Emperor. We don't know what's going on. I'm like 90-ish%. Still sure that he's good.
Okay.
And if he ends up being bad, it won't be that bad. It'll just be that him and Kain have a separate plan, you know?
Possibly.
This was the real bad part.
Possibly my favorite moment, character moment, I guess, in the game, but maybe even of any RPG I've played, is that Citan then pulls out his sword, and he's like, I'm going to start using this now. I can no longer pretend, I can no longer...
To be the good guy.
I can't run away from the responsibility I bear in this, the violence of it.
Yes.
Right? I didn't want to kill, which is why I fought hand-to-hand kind of thing.
But then he let other people do the killing for him.
And he's like, I can no longer avoid the responsibility of that.
To me, this hammered home the Soylent Green thing.
Yeah.
Where he was like, no, I refuse to eat it. I'm not going to eat it. But after this whole thing happens, after he knows that Fei doesn't pose as big of a threat to his plans as they thought, after everything's said and done, he's like, he's been trying to keep himself pure. I won't eat the Soylent Green. I won't kill people. But he, after all this is done, he's like, I can no longer avoid pretending like I'm the good guy and letting everyone else be bad for me. Yeah. And I feel like that has a reference to the Soylent Green thing, at least thematically in my mind. Yeah. It's connected there, where he's like, I can't pretend that just because I didn't eat the Soylent Green that I'm not complicit in what's going on. Like, I need to, you know.
Yeah.
I need to fight.
It's time. It's time to bear the full weight of the responsibility along with everyone else.
And that's the sword his wife gave him.
And yes, it's the sword his wife gave him. And it's freaking awesome because he uses it in battle now. His sprite changes.
Yes.
All of the death blows.
The moves he does
change
are cool.
to his sword moves.
Yes.
It's just so awesome.
It's really cool.
It's so fetching awesome. Citan's the best character ever. I loved that moment and just like fighting battles, because this game, we haven't talked too much about the gameplay, so it's not really the purpose of the podcast.
Not so much.
But like, I love so many like ideas behind this game's combat. It feels so cool that like they combined like button combinations, which are kind of like a fighting game thing, and worked that into a turn-based battle system. But the unfortunate part of it is that each time you unlock a new death blow, it more or less
takes the place of
makes the previous ones irrelevant.
I hate it. I look at the list. I've got like 12 death blows, like 15.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I got to level up these
This
ones.
one is just
I never use those anymore.
This is the new one. That's the strongest one you have.
Yeah.
And I wish that they had time, or maybe like the ability to develop it a little further, to where death blows from the beginning of the game could be useful in certain situations.
Sure.
And you're still using them.
Yeah.
You know, maybe this paired with this does something. Because there's the whole, I don't know if you've even seen this, there's the whole side of it where you can like just do an attack or something, but like just one, and then like withhold your turn, and it builds up a bunch of AP.
Right.
And if you build the AP all the way up, you can do like several death blows in a row.
I have done that before.
Yeah, so you can like death blow combine, and then you can do, so if there was a way to like combine death blows into some sort of super death blow or something like that, or anyways, just a way of making it so that each battle is not just you spamming the latest death blow you've gotten.
Yeah.
Right? Because it makes the battle system at the beginning of the game really freaking fun, and at the end of the game really freaking boring and monotonous and tedious. Because there's no point in not just doing your strongest death blow, unless you know this enemy's too weak and this death blow will just get the animation done faster, so I'll just use an early one.
I suppose. Just save a second or two.
There's just not a lot of complexity to the battle system after a while, where it's just like, this is my most powerful move, I'll just use that.
Every time, yeah.
So, anyways, the point I was going to make with that was, this made combat really fun all of a sudden again, because I was like, I gotta see all of Citan's new death
blows. And now
blows.
you want to go back and look at all of them.
I gotta see, because they're so freaking sweet.
I haven't gone back. That'll be fun to do though.
They're so cool, because all of his moves are different now. All the animations are different, and he's got all these like cool sword moves and stuff, and it's just like, dude, Citan is the man. He's my favorite character in the game, and like, he already was, but then like this was just like shoot to the moon. It's just way cooler than everyone else. He's more powerful than everyone else on foot. In the Gears, it's a different story, but on foot, he's the most powerful character by far, and he's the coolest character, and he's freaking wielding a sword now, and it's just awesome. So I freaking love that moment. Great moment. They kind of all come together. You have something?
At the gate thing, right? At the we all meet back together at the place.
Yeah, so they all kind of come together. There's a room with a blue and a yellow memory cube. And the blue memory cube is what they use now to let you change party members. Because it used to be Margie. You have to go back to Margie and talk to Margie and you can change your people.
Yeah, and she'll do it for you.
But now they have these blue memory cubes that allow you to do that. I thought it was strange. It's like, why don't you just, like, in Final Fantasy VII, just put the extra menu option inside of the normal save?
Yeah, it's weird because the yellow blocks are a didactic story element, diegetic story element. The blue ones, they kind of work in some idea that that's also diegetic, I guess. Yeah. But it's not as much.
not the same.
And now they're everywhere, which is kind of fun. But.
Yeah. Anyways, they all meet up together, and I think, actually, they might have happened before this. It does happen before this. Before you meet up together, Citan splits off from you guys, Bart and Billy and Faye.
Yeah, he's like, pick three people.
I have to go destroy another gate generator so we can leave.
Oh, right.
And so he actually goes up and meets with Jesse, and they're kind of in a gunfight by the gate generator. And Citan does what he needs to do to blow up the gate generator, but Ramsus comes running in the middle of this. And he's like, Huga and Jesse, you guys betrayed me too?
Again? Yeah.
This is
double
where he's
betrayal.
Just fetching, losing it, because it's just like, you're on Faye's side?
Because remember, when Ramsus received an order from Citan to stand down, Ramsus complied.
Oh, right.
From Citan, right?
That's
From Huga.
Way back in Ave.
Yeah. Way back then, because he was clued into some greater plan with the Gazel Ministry. But now, so he already felt betrayed by Sigurd, I think. Now he feels more betrayed by Citan. And I don't know if he cared about Jesse much anyways, but
they were all Elements members together.
They were. Jesse's just the one that people don't seem to have an easier time just saying, I don't care about you, not being as friendly with. But yeah, Ramsus, man, he's had it rough. But it's kind of his own grave that he's dug for himself.
That's a great point to bring up, is that Ramsus might have been
clued
gave in
stuff for Citan.
Yeah, he might have been clued in to some degree that Huga, as he would know him, is higher up and is like really close with the Gazel Ministry and with Cain in particular.
Yeah.
So if he is telling me to do something, he's on the side of Solaris. Like he's on my side, as much as I might have some resentment toward him about how when we were Elements at one time and maybe he left in circumstances that weren't great or whatever. It's not like Sigurd, where Sigurd like defected. He still thinks Huga is on Solaris' side. Yeah. So this might have been a really shocking thing for him.
I think it was.
Whereas like, wait a second, Huga, what are you doing?
Yeah, because he talks about betrayal. He says, you're a traitor, and that's the exact same thing he said to Sigurd. And it's so funny. I think he did. I think he felt like Citan was on his side the whole time. And he even gave concessions. He didn't kill. Well, I don't know that he knew about Faye at the time, though.
It was when he had first seen him, so he started to have suspicion.
He was thinking.
And he was chasing after him.
And he didn't do that because Citan.
Because Citan called him off. And he trusted in him that he had some sort of plan from the higher-ups, his higher-ups,
Yeah.
And he realizing now, like, wait a minute, you've been on Fei's side this whole
Whole
time.
time.
You traitor. Everyone is freaking traitors.
Yes, he
everyone
says
is betraying me.
Everyone's betraying
I'm going
me.
to freaking kill all of you. He is losing it.
This
totally
is
unraveling.
reality. Yeah.
This is reality. It's what we should have said.
This is his reality.
This is like, car, this is reality.
Car,
Let's go.
Turn and leave. Let's go.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyways, he stands there in the middle of an explosion that he survived somehow. They don't bother explaining it.
Oh, great, of course.
Because it's all blowing up. Like the gauge
The whole thing just crashes
Ramsus
to
is
the
just
ground.
standing there like, "Purst," and he explodes, and not a scratch on him. He gets out somehow, but
Wow.
whatever. He's a cool guy. He doesn't have to look at explosions. So you make your escape. Elly's parents come along.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And they show up at the dock, like when we all meet up at the dock.
It's like, all right, they're coming with us. They're basically traitors to Solaris now too.
Yeah.
And then her father leaves to go grab his gear, I think.
Yes.
And so he separates for a bit. You're walking towards the bridge. I think this is the same bridge, or at least one that's similar, to where they had a flashback with Sigurd and Ramsus when Sigurd defected and left. I think it's that same bridge. So they're coming, and this is like the exit of Solaris. They're about to get out. And then Hammer pulls out a gun.
Yeah.
And he takes Elly.
Elly, yeah.
And he's like, I'm serious. Like, I'll shoot her. Like, don't come any closer, right? Or I don't think he's pointing it at them. Maybe not at her. He's pointing it at them. Or anyways, either way, it's a hostage situation. And Fei's kind of also being like, why are you being silly? Like, they're not taking Hammer seriously.
Yeah.
And this, like I've been saying, is like his whole enneagram fear is worthlessness, not feeling like he can perform.
Yeah.
And like every time he came around, he was trying to demonstrate his worth. Mm-hmm. Look what I did, bro. Check out, I got the information you wanted. Mm-hmm. He was trying to be useful. Oh my, I shot that gear out of the sky. You see that? Yeah. And then Rico came in immediately, like just freaking beat him up and just like didn't acknowledge his usefulness. Mm-hmm. And it's been eating at him the whole time. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. He's feeling less and less and less useful. And like I said last time, he doesn't even get a hologram. He's there. He infiltrated Solaris with the whole party. He is with us. He doesn't have a spot on the hologram. He's basically just feels like a third wheel, or even worse. I guess, I don't know how many party members there are, but not third wheel. But he's not useful. He's not special. There's nothing about him that makes him stand out. He can't help. He just feels like he's being drug along. And so Krelian took advantage of that.
Yeah, when did that happen, by the way? I can't think of when.
They would have been captured. So Bart and the whole party would have been captured.
While they're in prison.
And I'm sure they would have been interrogated during that, space of time. Yeah. And so Krelian probably would have come to Hammer and figured out how he could use him.
And probably said, hey, Hammer, you're useful. Mm-hmm. You're useful to me.
I can make you powerful.
Sure.
I can offer you something that would make you special. And that's what Hammer kind of alludes to in this. And he doesn't want to hurt anybody. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to hurt Fei or hurt Elly or anybody. He just, if I take Elly back to them, you guys go on. If I take Elly back to them, then Krelian will, do this for me. Right? The one thing that he wants is to be worth something and to be useful.
And he thinks that this might actually work.
Yes.
It's almost like really pitiful.
It's really pitiful.
That he's like, oh, you guys will be fine. Just go. Because there's a part of him, there's part of everybody, but there's a part of Hammer that just really cares about himself. Yeah. And would assume that other people, no, you're fine. I just need her. Yeah. Like, you guys go escape. I'm not going to hurt you. And it's like as if like that would work. Yeah. Like to any normal person.
Very naive, right?
But he thinks that it'll work. Yeah.
So he really covets that power that Krelian's going to give to him. And he says, I'm different from you all. I'm not special like you. A normal guy like me has no choice but to do this.
And he expects that we understand him. He expects that we will, as opposed to him being a hero and saving her and saving everyone and being part of this group, it's, no, I need to be special. I want to be special too. Don't you guys get it? This is the only way I can be special. Like, don't you feel bad for me?
Yeah.
It's like really pathetic.
And I really like the way that Elly's mother handles the situation.
Oh my gosh, me too.
It's so beautiful.
No,
to me.
and I feel for that.
Yeah.
Like it made sense to me. Like the way she reacts here is like, yeah, that's probably how I would react too. And the words that she has of like I'm not thinking about what's going to happen if I do this.
Yeah.
I'm just doing it because I know I have to do it. It's like you turn off your brain and you just do what you know you have to do because what are you going to do? Not do it? Like you have to do it. And yeah, it's scary and it's weird, but you have to do it. And I feel like I've been in situations like that in the past.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, like here goes nothing. I don't know what's going to happen, but I have to do it. So here I go.
Yeah.
And I'll hope for the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very motherly. It's very beautiful.
It's like he keeps telling her, stop, like don't come any closer. He's like, I'm not going to stop.
Yeah,
this
that's
is my daughter and she's in trouble and I don't care what it takes. I'll do whatever it takes. But there's this very calm way of doing it. Even though she says, I'm shaking. Of course I'm afraid.
I'm horribly afraid, but
there's no way I'm going to stop.
Yeah, what else am I going to do? Stop, yeah.
And it's really good. And so she essentially calls Hammer's bluff in the moment and she almost gets away with it. Because she's like, all right, Elly, everything's okay now. Just walk back over there. And Hammer is obviously really struggling with, I had hoped that just the threat of violence would have been enough to get what I wanted, but now that I have to actually do it, am I actually willing to do it?
Yeah.
And it isn't until Elly actually goes to the other side that Hammer makes that choice.
And then he runs away immediately. It's like...
Yeah. Because he wasn't prepared.
It's weak.
He wasn't emotionally prepared to do it.
Yeah.
He had really hoped he wouldn't have to do that.
Right.
And when he actually did it and he saw the consequence, he couldn't handle it. And he just runs away.
Yeah, that sounds right for his character.
Because he's a coward.
Yeah.
So, really sad moment.
It was. It's really sad because in some way you do feel for him, but at the same time...
It's not excusable.
I like to think that that's never an option that I would ever put on the table, you know?
Yeah.
You know, we don't know ourselves perfectly.
And so Elly's mother is shot, she's screaming, and then Grahf and the executioner, the last time we saw this character was when...
In Kislev, right?
In Kislev,
yeah.
when she met with
She
Sigurd.
wasn't called the executioner at the
they
time,
didn't,
though, right?
They didn't call her that, and so we didn't have a name for this character, really. I think you don't see it until you're in battle. It's like you can select, and it says executioner.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is Miang.
Yeah, as we found out later.
Yeah, you'll see it right after the scene's over, but...
I don't know exactly why she had to be masked, but...
I don't either. Other than
even in Kislev, I don't know why.
Maybe she's trying to...
Because we knew it was Gebler anyways. It's like, okay, well, who cares if it's Miang or not? Like, I
wonder if she's hiding that fact from Grahf?
Oh.
Because she unmasks herself.
Why she wears them
she only unmasks herself in front of Krelian.
Does Grahf not know who she is and they're fighting together?
I don't know.
That's interesting.
I'm actually really kind of confused on this point.
That's possibly the only answer that I would accept. Because otherwise...
Because Grahf doesn't trust Miang.
You're right.
But they are kind of working together because they have a common goal.
And it was even referenced earlier. Oh, is that what Lacan and Miang are up to?
Yeah.
Right. So people know that they're doing stuff together. Some people know. Ramsus, I think.
Oh, I think I just thought of it, but I'm not going to say it yet.
Fair enough.
Anyways.
It's a question I have.
Whatever. You fight against Grahf and the Executioner, who is Miang. It's actually a really cool boss fight.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Very tough.
You really should go after Miang or Executioner first because some of those moves are devastating. But Grahf has some cool like Kai Blast moves. It's a fun fight. And that's the last boss fight of Disc 1.
Yeah. Where's the line about how Fei used to work for Grahf before Lahan?
After this.
That was after, okay.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of when he's putting together
in the prison
all of Fei's personality, dissociative identity disorder.
Okay, fair enough.
He's explaining that all in Shevat.
In Shevat, that makes sense.
So Elly's father, Eric, tries to arrive to help them in the gear.
Yeah.
And the Executioner kills him.
Yeah, and it's one of those scenes again where he's like, run, I'll buy you time. And they don't run.
Nope.
And then he dies, and then they're still there.
And then Elly starts to kind of glow with a light.
Yes, blue light.
Yep.
A blue light.
A blue light, correct. And what does the executioner say in response to that?
He says, "Oh, this much ether. What was it? What's the word?
Oh, to have that much ether control in a non-awakened state.
Yeah, because she's
Impressive.
not reverted to the one that killed all those people back 3 years ago.
Oh, I also forgot to mention this. When Elly's mother dies, her last words are, Elly, you're... oh, no, this is her father. Her father says this. Elly, you're Medina's daughter, my daughter, no matter what. That's his last words before he's killed. And that could be read two ways. If you don't have perfect works, it's still kind of left ambiguous.
Yeah, because it's like, consider she was your mom, even though she wasn't.
Yeah,
she was basically your mom. Just deal with it.
She's your mom.
This is reality.
This is, I guess, maybe the conundrum a lot of like adopted kids might have. Like,
Sure, yeah.
Are you really my mom? You adopted me? Yes, I'm always your mother.
In the end, it's always like,
but
yes, you are my real mom, even though you're not biological.
But in this case,
usually the conclusion,
with perfect works as a guide for this part, no, you literally are.
Okay.
Like, no matter what you believe, no matter what you've been told, no matter what it might seem like based on how you look, you are our daughter, I promise. So,
Cool.
The reason she looks different is because she's the antitype, not because she's not their biological daughter.
Now, how did you feel about the father showing up, and then immediately dying right after the mother had basically done the same thing?
I guess I didn't think about it too much. Did it seem...
The mother was so powerful. It was so good. It worked, and it was very sad. The father wasn't too,
as impactful.
But it was like, oh, we're barely introduced to these characters, and they're throwaway characters. Now they're exposable, and okay, we have no use for them now, so now they're both... But I would prefer that one lived and then died for her a little bit later. It was weird that they both died for her at different times right there on that dock at the same place. It diminished the impact a little bit that it could have otherwise had.
Related to the repetition I've talked about in the past, right? You repeat something.
Exactly.
It has less
It's like, no, my mother just died, no.
Then,
okay, 2 minutes later, no, my father, no. Yeah. And it's not as powerful as the first one.
It's the law of diminishing returns, right?
So exactly.
The more you repeat a thing, the less impact it has. It could be that. It's like you just had this great mother death scene.
That's what it felt like for me.
Right on the back of that, it's just, the second time is not the sin, it's the third time. But the second time certainly...
The third would have been comical. The second time was enough to diminish it, though.
Yeah, somewhat.
Somewhat.
I think you're right about that. Okay. So even despite the fact that Elly has this blue light that comes on and the executioner is all impressed by the level of ether control in a non-awakened state, still has more power over them and sort of like starts electric shocking everybody.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy.
Fei is looking around, and this is where he breaks, and Id emerges. Yeah. And Id basically destroys Solaris.
The entire place. It's because they mention, the destruction. What's the word? The calamity. Not the demon. It was Elru, but the thing that they mentioned.
The demon of Elru?
Yeah, but they mentioned maybe it was actually Grahf. I think we learned that it was actually Grahf. But the great destruction
of Elru, yeah. There's a word they use.
But
yes.
I thought there was a different place of a different time. But essentially we get to see what it was like when Elru destroyed an entire nation.
Yeah, because, and this is revealed a little later too, Elru was rebelling against Solaris. Yes. And that was the reason it was destroyed.
And they employed... came from there.
Yeah, Dominia is from Elru.
Is from the people, from there.
And so, so they just used Id to, like, as an atom bomb, as you've
as a
pointed out a few times, to just, like, wipe Elru off the freaking face of the planet. But it was Id who did it inside of the red gear, right?
Yeah.
So that's essentially what happens to Solaris right here.
Right there. It's taken right out of the sky and crashes down to Earth. But the Gazel Minister is still alive, so I guess they weren't in Eternunk. I thought they were, but I guess not, because that whole place got blown up.
This is another plot point that I don't necessarily remember the answer to.
Well, because Lacan's there with the Gazelle in that cube room, right? When we see him and we're talking to him and he'd betrayed us, he's in the room with the Gazelle in that weird floaty ball, right?
But it's almost like remember back
when... Was he green screened?
Remember back when Cain was talking with Citan in his little, like, Fei painting
yes,
dreamscape
in the weird,
world.
We see that again.
And then he goes, wait a second. And it's like, we're not seeing something, but he's like, oh, the elders are doing something. It's like
he teleconferenced in.
Isn't really there with Citan. They're having some kind of like telepathic communication. But he also wasn't there with the Gazel ministry. He teleconferenced in on the screen.
Yeah.
So how did he, I wonder if there was like a messenger who was talking wherever he actually is. I don't know, dude. I don't know where the Gazel ministry is stored. I don't know where Kane is.
Well, they're not in Etronach the way I thought they were.
I'm guessing they're not in Solaris. All right, so Miang takes off the mask. She is the executioner.
Yes, and then Krelian standing next to her, and
yeah.
I second-guessed my Grahf idea at the moment, thinking that Krelian was Grahf, because she's standing next to Krelian, and she unmasks, giving me the assumption that Krelian was Grahf, who had just previously unmasked.
Yeah, we hadn't seen
He just
that.
disappeared. He's just gone. And
Krelian's
there, where Grahf was.
They skipped ahead, because it's like, Fei went like, oh, but they didn't show his transformation at Id. They didn't show, they show it after this scene.
Yeah, they show it afterwards.
And yeah,
It's
Krelian
cool.
is there with her, and it's like, wait, what happened to Grahf?
Yeah, it's like his Grahf, because then Miang shows up as Miang, and it's like, okay, maybe Krelian's Grahf, but that's not how it ends up being.
But some of the dialogue here is important stuff.
Ooh.
So Miang says to Krelian, I don't think he'll get off the stage easily this time. Citan ends up using, ends up using this terminology about the stage in
like
the later scene
the consciousness,
after this.
the front.
Yeah. So it's like which consciousness is on the stage currently, or which personality. So she's talking about Id here. I don't think he'll get off the stage easily this time. So Id just blew up Solaris, and it's like, okay, he's in pretty firm control now. His power is astronomical.
You know what's weird though? They aren't that concerned. And that's part of the dialogue here, is like, yeah, even though the whole plan is going to crap and didn't work at all, like, they're okay with it somehow. It's very interesting.
Still kind of be part of the plan. It's definitely not part of the Gazel Ministry's plan.
I swear that they say specifically, like, yeah, even though our whole plan is shot, why are you still happy? Something like that. I can find that real quick if you want to read.
So she goes on to say, Fei's mental energy seems to have been weakened, and it's similar to the old days now. His feelings haven't changed over the years. Maybe you have mixed feelings? So, God, this is so confusing. She's talking about Fei as if Fei knew, Fei's feelings haven't changed over the years. Maybe your Krelian. So Krelian and Lacan were seen together, and Lacan looks exactly like Fei.
Yes, exactly.
But we also know that Lacan is Grahf.
Yes, and so that's
Anyways, that will be cleared up later.
Very interesting.
But
that's my note here, where I say, what Grahf is Lacan? I wonder about that. I wonder how we exist at the same time as Lacan, but still have his memories.
It's super confusing.
That's the question. Can you be a legend and still alive at the same time?
Yeah. So anyway, she's just talking to him as if, like, how are you dealing with this emotionally? The fact that you knew these people before or have an attachment to them or something like that. And Krelian says, how can you continue to fight without a chance of winning? Now, when I first read that, I was like, is he talking about them? Or is he talking to her? Or is he talking about Fei? How can you, meaning how does Fei or their party, continue to fight without a chance of winning?
Oh, that's it. I took that wrong then. I took that wrong.
Yeah, I did too. The way it's written, it's almost like he's talking to her. How can you continue to fight without a chance of winning?
Yeah.
It's like, he doesn't really believe that. He doesn't believe that.
That's what I was just now referencing to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what he means is he's speaking to her about them.
Says, how can you continue?
How can you continue to fight without a chance of winning?
So it's a theoretical you.
Yeah.
This is why. So Japanese does this a lot. So have you ever wondered why the Confucian, like the Confucian ideas of like one must not do what one thinks one should do for one's own sake?
Yes.
Why they use the word one?
Yes.
It's because of the omitted subject.
Yes.
So all they're saying is that should things be done in this order, but then you you take the proverb and you say, should you do things in the order you're doing them, right? You put the you in, but it's not you, it's just general you.
Yeah.
So then
Yes.
the best, and it's actually a decent substitute for how weird the Asian languages are in English. It's a decent substitute to just say one. One cannot do what one thinks. What the real sentence is what is thought should not be done, period.
Yes.
But then to translate English, that's weird. So you say one should not do what one thinks. So you say one instead of you or they or anyone or anything.
This would make way more sense if you said, how can one
continue to fight
without a chance of
Exactly.
Okay.
Now you know why the Confucius stuff says one over and over and over and why it's weird.
So Miang says, isn't that what you want? Thought I induced, I wrote that wrong. Isn't that what you want? Though I induced you to feel that way. But we're almost there. Our only actual example of success. Let's take good care of him.
I am so confused by that, but I'm supposed to be, is my guess.
They're still using.
But it's interesting. It's interesting. So they're
still in control.
So they've had a success. They see what's happening as maybe not a total success, but what they really care about, the important thing of what they care about, is a success, and they're like, good.
Yeah, and
this was worth the sacrifice. The whole freaking city.
Also keep in mind this. Earlier, Citan referenced that Krelian was working. They were doing genetic experimentation to try to return humanity to a specific state, right? Like the heightened, or there's a certain evolutionary state they're trying to push humanity into.
Okay.
And he's like, I wonder how the nanomachine technology will help him do that. He was concerned about that.
Yes, I remember that. That was a little bit ago.
Right?
I remember that.
So that's what Krelian's doing. And so when she's talking about, our only actual example of success, and I induced you to feel that way, things like this, right? Krelian and Miang are working together on that type of thing. I'll just leave it at that. And then Krelian leaves off by saying,
to feel that way.
Krelian leaves off by saying, what her true intentions are, I don't even know. Regarding Elly, I think. Antitype. Okay, anyways, we're going to have to rush a little bit through this next part.
The Japanese doesn't say anything about being induced, but,
Oh, okay.
That's possible. She said, though I did that, something like that. So isn't that what you wanted? Though I'm the one that did that, ... That's the Japanese. But it still could read induced. Just kind of a funny word.
Interesting. Okay.
All right, let's move on.
Okay, so you escape, and Id is still active, and he confronts, or Elly goes out to confront Id. And she sort of pulls Fei back out.
And Citan tells her not to go, but he's like, it's dangerous. And she's like, yeah, I know it's dangerous. It's kind of like what the mother thing that had happened. She's like, but what am I going to do? I have to go do it.
Elly or Miang says here, I don't think he'll get off the stage easily this time. Id has more or less full power now. Because remember in the scene that follows this, when we actually get to see Citan's conversation, Id says, I could break out of this and kill you right now.
But he's like, well, then why don't you?
And he says, it's because if you exert too much energy, right, and you weaken yourself, then Fei takes back over again. And that's why you won't do it. She's saying, Id will not leave the stage easily this time. Id is getting more and more control. And that is what has suppressed his power up till now. Now he's almost at full power. He's destroying all of Solaris. It's like, woo, his power level is almost at full. And he's able to exert that much power without losing the stage. It's only Elly who's able to bring Fei back in that moment.
And she almost dies doing it.
Yes. So really nice little scene where it was almost a reverse of earlier when she had drive and Fei was like, no, and he was holding Elly
You're
down
right.
like,
it's
no,
a reverse.
You're not this person.
Yeah.
Come back. And now she's doing the same.
That's a cool thing they did there. Look at that. That's cool.
She kind of grabs. So Id comes up and
they both grab each other's like heart.
Holds
it feels like
him.
They're holding each other's heart. That's the imagery. And each of them could squeeze, but the other one would die, kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that was. You're right. And then she pulls him in. She pulls him first, I think.
Yeah.
Or no, maybe he doesn't.
He grabs her, but then she
pulls
locks
him
him
right.
in, and she starts talking to him like, Faye, come back. Great scene.
Yeah, very
Great
well
scene.
done.
That's a reverse from the one earlier. And Faye comes back, right? But now it's like, okay, what do we do with Faye? Everyone knows Faye's id now, and it's like, shoot. So they're going to go back to Shevat, and they're going to make a decision about that.
Yeah, and Zephyr is like, basically everyone agrees with Zephyr when they're in the rational place of like, oh yeah, everyone agrees like, yeah, we can't let him, but secretly inside they're like, no, he's our friend, like we're sticking with him.
Yeah.
But outwardly in front of Zephyr and everybody, they're like, oh, of course not, of course, he should be put in jail forever.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good actually.
But before then, Citan explains all this stuff about id.
Yeah, so when their conversation, we get to read that whole conversation with id. And that is fascinating, although I don't get how Citan took from that conversation that id is not a threat to the Emperor.
I'm going to tell you why.
Okay, good.
I'm going to tell you why. So basically he reiterates a conversation he had with the Emperor, where the Emperor calls Faye the contact again.
Yes.
Confesses that, Citan confesses that he was sent to monitor Faye and whether he's a threat to the world or not. There's some dialogue from the Emperor where he says, Ananelbi, which is, again, mistranslated or mistransliterated. What it should be is Ananerbi, which is German, I think, and it means ancient heritage.
Okay.
So it should be Ananerbi, I don't know how to pronounce it.
I don't know.
But that's a German word, I believe.
Ananerbi.
And it means ancient heritage. So when Cain says that, he's basically saying, I'll just say ancient heritage. You think you can do it? He's saying to Citan. Citan says, yes, humans have the potential. Managers are no longer needed. And Cain says, the contact is not our enemy. Then I leave it up to you. I atone for my crime by doing so.
Yeah, that's fascinating. But he's Cain, so I can guess a little what his
crime might have been.
But, it's all good.
Yeah, so we'll learn more about that later. Okay, so then we come back. Citan is talking to Jesse and Sigurd on the bridge of the Yggdrasil, I think. And he's used that word again, Ananelbi. The long-awaited man of God who will take the people born in this world with him to a new horizon. Such is the destiny of the contact. That is what the Emperor called Faye. So Faye is this destined Ananelbi, or Ananerbi, the German word, right? He inherited.
So a man of God who will take the people born to the world,
born in this world, with him to a new horizon. Such is the destiny of the contact.
Which is Faye.
Yeah. He confirms here that Faye is not only the one who destroyed Elru and sank the Yggdrasil, but was also the one who killed Rico's guys in the sewers.
Yes, so Rico's not happy about that.
If you hadn't picked up on that earlier with the red and the green tint, right, it's confirmed here.
It's confirmed here.
That Rico's guys were killed by Faye in the sewers. That's what happened back in Kislev. He turned into id and killed those dudes. He says that Faye has dissociative identity disorder and that he worked with Grahf as an assassin before he arrived at Lahan. And Grahf was intentionally provoking the manifestation of id to destroy God. So Faye is the contact, the man of God, who will take the people born in this world with him to a new horizon. But Grahf was intentionally provoking id out of him to destroy God, to go against the destiny of the contact.
Well, that is the difference between the superego and the id, right there. It's like, are you called to fulfill God's wishes, or are you going to kill God and kill everything with it?
Then we see the scene where Citan talks directly to id, and it's freaking awesome. Id reveals that the Faye that we've known throughout the game is not the base personality of Faye. It was created 3 years ago by Khan.
And that's the craziest thing, is that the whole game we've been thinking id is a suppressed part of Faye, but Faye's the real person.
Yeah.
It seems that id is the real person.
Yeah.
And Faye is the repressed, separate part of id.
That's how it seems at first. That's what id's trying to make it out to be like. That's what id's trying to say.
He's like, I'm the real one.
I'm the real one. Right. That person was inexplicably created by Khan when he suppressed me down in the deep subconscious. And this person
created this 3-year-old
came about
fake.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
He's not in control. I'm in control. Right? That's what he says.
Yes.
So he sealed up my
That's what I'd
personality
say too if I was him.
in the deepest recesses of my consciousness. Through some inexplicable reason, that is when the present Fei was born. Okay? But he keeps referring to this coward. Mm-hmm. In
it's
addition
like
to
as
that.
like a third person.
Yes, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that scene where Fei kind of walked in and there was a boy sitting in front of like a projector, and he was like in a spotlight, and Fei kind of walked up to him and was like,
It's
"What's
the
this?"
young-
And then the little kid with the hair in his eyes, was like, "You shouldn't be here,"
Yes,
and
I
like
remember that,
shut him out. Okay, so he keeps referring to this coward, and Citan notices that, and he's like, "Who is that? Who do you mean by coward?" Right? And what he finds out, what Citan explains, is the present Fei is one single personality. It is just that structure-wise, his personality was constructed on top of Id's, hence placing Fei at a lower hierarchy.
Yes.
So you go down deeper, right? Hierarchy going down this way. Fei that we know is on the top. Id is underneath him, or in the hierarchy would be above him, right?
Hierarchy, yeah.
But down beneath that, first of all, hence placing Fei at a lower hierarchy, that is why when Id is active, Fei has no recollection of it. Id only manifests when Fei's mental energy is in a weakened state. It is a mystery in and of itself that the lower level personality of Fei has any control over the upper level personality of Id. There's a deeper personality below Id.
And that person is afraid
Yes.
to come out.
Doesn't want to live.
That person doesn't want Fei to know that he's there and doesn't want to do... Yeah.
And I think Id says something to the effect of, like, he's too afraid to live or too cowardly to live or something like that.
That's a Nietzschean argument.
Yeah.
So Id believes he's the Übermensch.
Yes.
He's the great super person, and that everyone else is just a coward. They aren't willing to go take life and do what they will with it. And that's
right.
That's Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch. And interesting.
So he says, it is obvious that there exists a third personality. Id calls this existence the coward. In my observation, this coward may be the fundamental personality of Fei.
Interesting.
But this fundamental personality, the real Fei down underneath, something happened where he wants to hide away. He doesn't want to live. He doesn't want to be in control. There's a cowardly aspect to that character where this is why the personalities split. But this is the only thing keeping Id in the hierarchy, keeping Id from having full control over Fei, is that this base, the hierarchy is that the base coward is actually at the top
I
or
get
at the
that.
farthest.
And we have seen that in some of the anime scenes in the
Yes.
past. We've seen that. But I would still say that when Fei sees the video, the projection, he sees there's Id, and then he sees the younger Fei.
The boy.
They're making it sound like there's a person here, then there's Id, and then there's Fei up top.
No. So this base Fei is at the bottom of the hierarchy.
And at the top?
Id is in the middle.
And then there's fake Fei, who we've been playing as.
Fake Fei is, sorry. It's
Yeah,
hard
are we doing conscious or are we doing hierarchy?
Consciousness down, hierarchy up. I'm doing hierarchy up.
I understand it, but I'm
Fake
confused.
Fei at the bottom of the hierarchy. The one from 3 years ago that was created.
Yeah.
Id is at the hierarchy above him.
Yeah, but
and
then
that's why he can't remember.
Then there's
the
real
coward,
Fei, who's a coward.
the boy in the spotlight,
Yes.
is at the top.
And I guess I don't get the difference between the coward and Fei. I don't see a difference in my mind. I'm like, no, that's just Fei. He's just now here now.
At this point, we don't know anything about the coward other than that he's there.
Sure.
But this
and there's
this
stuff
Fei,
with Lacan.
This Fei at the bottom of the hierarchy or at the top of the the subconscious or whatever.
Yeah.
This is not the real Fei. As he says,
it was created by Khan, right? Yeah.
Yes. Or it emerged because Khan buried Id. It was inexplicable how it happened, Id says. This personality emerged 3 years ago.
Okay.
This is not the fundamental personality of Fei, as he says here. It is obvious that there exists a third personality. Id calls this existence the coward. In my observation, this coward may be the fundamental personality of Fei.
Okay. Because Fei's kind of a coward.
He can be too, yeah. But
and he takes it personally when Elliam called him a coward back in the day.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's move on. I get what that's saying more.
Yeah, because we got to wrap up.
Yeah.
Like immediately. So he goes on to say the coward is assisting Fei in keeping control over Id, right? So the coward and Fei work together, kind of subconsciously, not consciously, to keep Id from taking over. Okay, then they all meet with the elders and they decide they want to freeze Fei and Carbonite because it's just too much. There's too much of a risk.
Everyone agrees outwardly because they can't defend any other position.
Yes.
Like out loud.
Yes.
But they don't agree inside. So I thought this was pretty cool.
And Elly is totally against it. She goes down there to help him escape.
Yep.
And he says...
this is important.
He says, they say I'm the second advent of Grahf. And I did not remember them saying that on the nose this early. I was like, oh my gosh, they say it now?
Yeah.
Now you put it together earlier.
With Lacan.
With the fact that Lacan is Fei, but... sorry, that Lacan is Grahf.
Is Grahf.
But the one who destroyed all this world, he says, it seems Grahf used to be a land dweller named Lacan. I did not remember that they paired Grahf and Lacan so early and so overtly. I did not remember that, but you already put that together.
I had.
Before.
I had, yeah.
So I put a note here to ask what you make of that, but you already explained it, so we're good.
Yeah, I'm there. It's still confusing because we have memories of Lacan. And so I don't get how that can work if Lacan is still alive and he's like there and he's not us. But he looked like us.
I've already said this.
But I guess that's why he wears a mask, because he looks like us.
This is the most confusing plot point of the whole game, and it will take a long time to explain.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm confused, but I get it.
So Elly says, you could have killed me if you really wanted to, right? The other you, Id's power is nothing like that. But you still didn't go through with it. You knew when it was enough. Yeah. Isn't that because your will was in effect? If you're to be controlled by Id and all those around you became your enemies, I'd still be by your side because I know it's lonely to be by yourself. Again, just a nice little sentiment there. The romance is really working for me. We see a flash to that anime scene from earlier. Remember when the woman approached boy Fei in the desert?
Yeah, and she's got the necklace, and
it flashes to that there.
Yeah.
So just something to think about.
Did we see the whole scene? I can't remember. Or
no, it was just her, and it shows
brief.
the necklace, but it's just her there.
Yeah. And her face.
Now, I actually made a note here. I refuse to talk anymore about Gazel Ministry conversations. It hurts my brain. But the important thing to take from this one is that Ramsus was given an animal relic, and his gear is an Omni gear now.
Yeah, and it's like beastly.
And it's like, okay, Krelian's going to give Ramsus a chance, but they keep calling him trash.
I don't get why they give him a chance at all. Krelian must have a reason. I don't get it at all.
Krelian has a reason.
Yeah.
The Gazel Ministry are ready to do
But
away
at the same time, Krelian's like, hey, don't kill Elly.
Yes.
And Ramsus doesn't care.
Ramsus does not care because he's losing
Krelian
his mind.
should know that.
Krelian is, anyways.
He might know that.
There's a purpose for Ramsus. Miang mentioned that earlier in the story. Krelian wants Elly to come back. They want to capture Elly again, and they gave Ramsus an anima relic. His gear's an Omni gear now. That's the only thing I care about in that Gazel Ministry conversation.
Now, I don't get why Ramsus did not confirm the kill. Like, he shows up, he kicks our butt, he kicks us out of the sky.
Because he got an Omni gear now.
And then he's like, sick. And then he leaves. And it's like, you really think that you just killed the demon of Elru just by just because he fell to earth and now he's dead? You're not going to go back down and check?
Yeah, you're right.
No.
That doesn't make sense.
It was a little weird. But he was also nervous that he killed Elly, so I think maybe he was like,
oh crap. I got to go. Anyways. Yeah. But he forgets his orders again.
Yeah, the power goes to his head. I can't believe, anyways. Yeah, you're right. They have a different reason, but it's weird.
But he shoots down the Veltal, and it crashes, and it's on fire. And Elly is badly wounded in the crash.
Yeah, they did a good sprite animation. As she's walking, you can see blood kind of dripping.
It's really nice.
Yeah, very good.
And as Fei drags her away from the wreckage, Grahf is seen watching from the shadows. End of disc 1. Holy crap, we barely made it. We got to get Case into to the train station. Thanks for watching, everybody. Next time, play up to Raziel's tree. That's a vague enough thing, but you'll know when you get there. Play up through the section with Raziel's tree. That's where we're going to get up to next time. All right, everyone. Peace out. See you next time.